Good evening. Sorry I'm a bit late. I was having trouble getting my ring light to work, but I think everything is working now except for the moths. I notice the sheet looks pretty empty tonight. For some reason, it's nice and warm. It's close to 70 degrees. It's partly cloudy. I guess maybe the wind is a little bit higher than we would like. It's from the south at around 20 kilometers an hour. I've had the lights on for over an hour, so the moths have had plenty of time to come in. Anyway, we'll move in and see what's there, and maybe I'll do a little song and dance while we wait for a few more to come in. All right, let's take a look. Nothing large at all, not even a June bug on the sheet. Ginger, you haven't seen me sing and dance, so don't say that. Okay, hang on a second. The light isn't working again. Hey Chloe, how are you? Kim, you want song and dance? No, you don't. Trust me. Dan, I don't know if you're here, but if you are, hello. Hi, Lissa. Hey, Chloe and JB, welcome. Well, I guess we'll work with what we have here. These are, excuse me, a couple of species we've seen a number of times. Flame-shouldered dart on the right, a moth. And the beetle is one of the May beetles that has some green iridescence and orangish colored legs. I had prepared a card to use tonight. I was going to, it has a dark side and a light side, and I was going to stick it in the screen in the field of view when we're looking on the white sheet, see if it would boost the light on the insects. And the light side, I was going to use it on the dark shingles for the same effect. But I left it in the house and I don't even remember where I put it. So we'll do without. The flame-shouldered dart. This is in the same family as the June bug. It's in the May beetle family. It's much smaller than a June bug. look along the side here. I see there's a couple of moths on the other side of the shed here. And we might lose the signal. I've tried it here before and the shed wall kind of comes between us and the modem in the house. But we'll try it. That's Zestia that we've seen quite a few times before, Zestia C. nigrum. And a flame-shouldered dart. Down here, common bluefizia. That's it, Alyssa. You had it perfect. Here's a little tiny moth. This one is called the carrot seed moth. The wings are actually quite rufous colored, but not getting quite enough light here. Carrot seed moth. So I guess the caterpillars probably feed on carrot seeds. Just taking a wild guess. Here's another one of those smaller May beetles. In the same family as June bugs, but only about a third the size. Hi, Brianna. Parrot seed moth. Could be. I'm amazed the iPad hasn't disconnected. Actually got over as far as the door. This is the side of the shed that I normally do my moth, put my moth lights and my moth sheet. But I was doing some speed tests with the iPad before I started streaming for moths, and I just found I couldn't get enough speed, enough signal strength over here. So I moved the sheet and the lights over to this side of the shed where it is a bit windier. There's a little guy down here that looks, I don't know, it's not even a moth. Not sure what kind of flies those are. Obviously a mating pair. I think they're in the fruit fly family. not sure what that little one is. Remember the bands of lines on the tissue are 11 millimeters wide. So this moth would be, looks like it would be about 10 millimeters. Moths are sort of generally broken down into two major groups, the macro moths and the micro moths. And in the past, micro moths have kind of been ignored because they're so small. And only in recent decades have people made an attempt to do a lot of research on them. And so there are new species being discovered all the time. Lots and lots of undescribed species. Oh, sorry. Malfunction. My ring light fell off. Oh, it's back on. There's this beautiful May beetle with this iridescent green elytra. Those are the hard coverings over top of the wings. These guys are still going at it. So generally speaking, most micro moths are less than 10 millimeters in length from wingtip. And macro moths, of course, are anything larger than that. But within each group, there are some exceptions. There are some really tiny macro moths, and there are some huge micro moths. I think this is a ground beetle. Hey, Gerald. This is some kind of a ground beetle. Ground beetles are the family name is Corabidae. There's a lot of families of beetles. Beetles is probably the largest order of organisms in the world. There's so many species of beetles. And it's really hard to learn them down to species level. But if you can get a handle on characteristics of the family of beetles, it makes looking at them a lot more enjoyable. If you have an idea at least what family they're in. Gerald, we're looking for some... All right, lost connection there briefly. I think we're back again. Gerald likes the Beatles. Kind of dating yourself there. By the way, I haven't, if anyone's wondering, I haven't heard from Joe yet. So I'll give him a call tomorrow if I don't have an email from him. This is our white spring moth that we've seen quite a few times, with the brownish wash on the leading edge forewing, white spring moth. They won't be flying too much longer. Of course, you know, moths are seasonal, like all other insects. Oh, here's a kind of a soldier beetle. And see here where we have a lot of black on the right side of the screen, the lighting is much better on the beetle. Anyway, there are lots of moths that are only found in the springtime. There are a lot of moths that have yet to start flying. So July is actually July is pretty much the peak month for moth diversity, and that's when National Moth Week is held every year, usually the third week of July. That's a micro moth I don't recognize, but it doesn't have much in the way of field marks. One June bug down here. Well, I'm really surprised by how few insects of any kind there are tonight, considering how mild it is. So we might have a shortened version of our moth watch. I didn't see Gerald offering to sing and dance for us. There's a sharp-angled carpet moth. Oh, Gerald, got your fiddle tuned up? These sharp-angled carpet moths fly do done too. You got her. These sharp-angled carpet moths fly all spring and all summer, right into October actually. So they have several generations actually. It's not the same generation. It's the same with butterflies. A lot of species of butterflies have 2 or 3 different generations during the summer. And sometimes the different generations actually can look different. Here's a nice caddis fly. I can find it. Caddis fly with the long antenna. Trout bait, yeah. Sounds like a fisherman there. I've found that if you want to know anything about caddisflies, talk to a trout fisherman because it's hard to find anybody doing research on them, any scientists. Here's kind of a common bug that we find under rocks and stones and areas where there's damp wood. And around here, we call them sow bugs. Somebody said, Brianna said pill bug. Yeah, that's another really common name for them. Pill bug, sow bug. And they're actually not insects. They're arthropods, but I think they're more closely related to crustaceans than they are to insects. It's funny, everybody around here calls them sow bugs. Everybody I've ever met in my life in New Brunswick calls them sow bugs. And if you go to other places, everybody calls them pill bugs. And what do they call them? In Newfoundland, they call them carpenters. They have cousins that live in the sea. Yes, sir, they sure do. Who's this? That was Morrison's Peril. Oh, he didn't stay. Oh, he's over here now. Oh, it's gone again. Asian lady beetle. Roly-poly. Yeah, Gerald, the guy's finally coming home from the liquor store on his Harley. Oop. It's funny, I've lived here long enough, or we've lived here long enough that we don't really notice the traffic. But I sure notice it when I go to make a recording or make a video or try to make some nature recordings with my Sony digital recorder or microphone. And it's the only drawback of living here, is that we're kind of close to the road. Well, it's not just that, it's just that there's so darn much traffic on this road for some reason. That ground beetle we saw earlier. Same soldier beetle we saw earlier. Sorry, I was just checking a message I had received. There's an ichneumon wasp. Those things do not sting, bite, or do anything. Ichneumon wasps are a really large group in North America, several thousand species, and most of them are really colorful. They're really amazingly patterned, very attractive, and very few of them are capable of stinging. Well, I'll just keep checking here for a few more minutes. Gerald, you just keep singing. I think we looked at that micro moth earlier. Oh, here's something new anyway. This is called the Eastern Grass Veneer. The grass veneers are in the genus Crambus, and there's a lot of them in New Brunswick, well, a lot of them everywhere. We have about 20 species in New Brunswick of grass veneers, and they're identified by the patterning on the sides, right? Where the white stripes are, how wide they are, where they narrow, how many there are. A little shy. That one is, I think, the Eastern grass veneer. Grass veneer is usually hyphenated, grass veneer, just like it sounds. Oh, here's a oh, keep forgetting to look this one up, because we see it almost every night. It feeds on pine. You know, it's called a white pine cone something, like white pine cone roller, white pine cone. Anyway, obviously the larvae live in the cones of white pines, which we have lots and lots here. Borer. I think it's called the white pine cone borer. B-O-R-E-R. Slowly but surely the names are coming back. I'll have a few of them figured out by the time. June bug is still here. There's carpet moth here. I think this is the white banded tooth carpet. Another one up here. Sorry about the lighting. Let's see if I have a white sheet in my pocket. There. White banded tooth carpet. Oh, here's a new one. It's a beautiful pattern. I think it's called white triangle tortrix. White triangle tortrix. Tortrix. And it looks like it's maybe 12, 13 millimeters long. Gosh, there's no big moths tonight, no sphinx moths. It's not that windy. So I don't know if it's the rain we had some pretty heavy rain around supper time. Here's a tiny moth. Or no, it's not a moth, it's a leafhopper. Looks like it's about 7 millimeters, 6, 7 millimeters long. I've, over the last 3 years, I sort of got interested in leaf hoppers 3 years ago. And I've been photographing them. Well, I haven't really started photographing them this year. So for 2 years, I photographed them, 2022 and 2021. And I photographed 53 species of leafhoppers in the yard. Well, on this sheet, really. Here's a pug moth. We have a lot of pug moths in New Brunswick, and they're almost all of them are difficult to identify, except there's one called the green pug that I haven't seen yet this year, but we will. And they're pretty easy to identify. They are all green with the darker markings. And there's a few other species that are fairly easy to identify. You've seen these. There's Morrison's Perro. You've seen before. There's a soldier beetle. This is interesting. Don't know what that is. It's kind of behind the light here. Maybe. Yeah, it looks like it could be some kind of a caddisfly. I lost it. Sorry. There it is. Yeah, that's a caddisfly. It's a different pattern than one any we've seen before. Here's a brother moth. See those every night. This little one doesn't have a common name. In the genus Apotomis, Apotomis, Apotomis. species is alveolana. Alveol refers to white. Lana, I'm not quite sure what, I'm not up to date on my Latin. If you're interested in word origins, it's kind of neat to look at scientific names and try to figure out, oh, this one's got a long neck on it. This beetle. Yeah, it's kind of fun to look at scientific names. They're often based in Latin or Greek words, and try to figure out what they mean and associate it with the insect. I think that's a codling moth that we've seen a few times before. Feeds on apple, introduced from Europe. With a nondescript moth here. I won't even try to put a name on this one. Seems like it's quite worn. Caddisfly again. Oh, here's a, oh, this is a nice moth. This is called a bee moth. Bee like a bumblebee. And I think the larvae are somehow associated with beehives. Hi, Mary. I don't think I said hello to you before. And Sharon. Welcome, Sharon. Glad you could drop by. So, bee moth. Caddisfly. Pretty interesting pattern on this one. You can see the individual cells in the wings are dark or light dark or transparent. Here's something large, but I'm afraid it's just a June bug I'm hearing. It's like the same ichneumon wasp. Wait till you see some of the more spectacularly colored and patterned ones that will show up here in the next few weeks. That goes for everything. Beetles. You won't believe some of the beetles we're going to see here. And of course, moths. We've only scratched the surface. Leafhoppers. There's going to be some amazing leafhoppers once they start flying. Here's the new one. Not sure what it is, but this is in the genus Hedya, Hedya, Hedya. There are several species that are quite similar, but I think I can identify it when I get to a book or get to Moth Photographers Group. Sorry about the focusing. If any of you are really interested in getting to learn a little more about moths in terms of being able to assign a moth that you see to a particular family of moths, soldier beetle, a good way to do that is to if you have a Peterson Field Guide to the moths. There is a very good Peterson Field Guide to moths of northeastern North America, and there's a quite new Peterson Field Guide to the moths of southeastern North America, or southeastern U.S., I should say. If you just flip through the field guide, just in your spare time, just flip through it, look at the plates, take note of what family you're looking at. At the top of the pages, it always tells you what family you're in. And after a while, you'll sort of catch on to the characteristics of the different families. It takes a while, but it comes with time. And then when you see something you want to identify, at least if you can figure out what family or what groups of families to start looking in, it'll save you an awful lot of time. When I started moth watching back in 2015, I didn't have a clue about moths. I didn't know any moths, except Luna, maybe, and a couple of others. But I just decided I was going to learn moths. So I would see a moth, and I would take my Peterson Field Guide to moths and open it up right in the middle. And if it was a smallish moth, I would go to the left. I'd start browsing the pages to the left. And if it was a largish moth, I'd start browsing the pages to the right. Now, there's 600 pages in the Peterson Field Guide to the moths. A few of us who were just starting mothing then, we called all the small moths the left-turn moths, and the larger moths were the right-turn moths, depending on which way you start browsing when you open your Peterson Guide. But you can spend hours and hours and hours when you don't have a clue what family it's in, looking for a moth. So any way that you can learn characteristics of moth families will save you a lot of time. So you can do that with the Peterson Field Guide, or I think even better is to go online to a website called Moth Photographers Group. Moth Photographers Group. And here's a dagger moth. It's going to hide for us here. I think that's American dagger moth. Go to Moth Photographers Group, and at the top of that page, the home page, you'll see a link for the plate series. Plate series. Click on the link for plate series, And the next page that opens, at the top you'll see a big link for take a walk through the moth families. Take a walk through the moth families. Ooh, there's a nice one. It flew, darn it. And just go through those plates. Take a walk through the moth family. And it gives you a good example of all families of moths in North America. And I think that's where I learned more about moth families than anywhere else. By taking a walk through the moth families at Moth Photographers Group. Click beetle just flew away. Soldier beetle again. We have lots and lots of species of soldier beetles. It's another big family within the beetle order. There's a white-banded toothed carpet moth that has its wings folded. Large maple spanworm. Not really that large. It's a micromoth actually. Oh. It's a red cross shield bug on my fingernail. Red crossed. I don't know if it's red cross or red crossed. Oh, there's an ichneumon wasp on my hand. A shield bug. Red cross shield bug. Well, we'll take one more look over on this side of the shed. Oh, here's somebody new. Darn, he flew. It was a many-lined carpet moth that we had seen once before, but this was a very different variation, much paler. Here's a three-lined balsa that we've seen quite a few times. Many-lined carpet moth, yeah, we almost saw. Gerald, I'm far from being an entomologist. Just obsessed with moths. I had a couple of friends who were bird watchers when I was younger. I mean, I've been bird watching all my life. Here's the bee moth again. I've been bird watching. I mean, primarily I've been a bird watcher all my life, and that was my career, was leading bird watching tours around the world. But I had a couple of good birding friends who were really into insects, and it was just from hanging out with them, I was just amazed when I would go birding with them that they would name off all these amazing insects that we were seeing. I mean, I wasn't seeing them, I was looking past them before I met these people that were interested in insects. But they kind of opened my eyes to insects and how kind of supplemented bird watching when the birding was slow. It was a nice crane fly. Come on. when the birding was slow, you could always look at insects. Well, not in the wintertime, but for a good part of the year. And I was just amazed how one guy in particular knew everything about every type of insect. And at some point, I just decided it was time to learn something about insects. That would have been about 2010. No, actually, that's not true. I got really interested in dragonflies in 1994. There's a few things coming in here now, including the mosquito that's biting my eyelid. I think that's our white spring moth. In 1994, I was leading a tour to the Dry Tortugas, which are a group of islands off of the Florida Keys, off the end of the Florida Keys. Fort Jefferson National Monument is out there, and it's also a big bird nesting colony. A big colony of sooty terns and brown noddies. Anyway, somebody who was on the tour, I noticed, had brought insect nets with them. And they were, sorry, I'm trying to look around here and talk at the same time. It's hard for me to do two things at once. They were running around while we were birding, and they were catching dragonflies. And the Dry Tortugas are just an isolated group of islands, or rocky islands, out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. There's no fresh water there, none whatsoever. I knew that dragonflies needed fresh water for their life cycle. They spend most of their lives, dragonflies, the majority of their life is spent as a nymph in the water, in fresh water. So I'm thinking, how could there be dragonflies out here in the Dry Tortugas? And the guy started explaining to me how a lot of dragonflies migrate. Well, of course, as soon as they mentioned migration, my ears perked up because I like things that migrate, primarily birds. But anyway, I learned from just the 3 days we were on the Dry Tortugas about dragonflies and dragonfly migration. And that was in April 1994. They told me that in June of that year, they were coming to these people that were chasing dragonflies were from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. They told me in June of that year that the Dragonfly Society of the Americas, for the very first time, was holding their annual convention in Canada. And not only just in Canada, it was going to be in New Brunswick. And it was going to be in St. Stephen's, New Brunswick, which is right at the border with Maine. And the reason they were holding it there was because somebody had discovered a new species of dragonfly, new to science, on the St. Croix River at St. Stephen's, New Brunswick. So somehow I ended up going to that convention, even though I didn't know a darn thing about dragonflies in 1994. But really the convention was basically 3 days of chasing dragonflies, collecting dragonflies all over southwestern New Brunswick. So I tagged along with the people I'd met at the Dry Tortugas, and in 3 days we saw 64 species of dragonflies, saw and collected 64 species of dragonflies. Well, I figured, dragonflies, there's 2 or 3 different kinds. Big blue ones, little blue ones. Anyway, it turned out, there was like 135 different species of dragonflies just in New Brunswick. So after that weekend, I became obsessed with dragonflies for a few years, and that's all I did in the summertime. 1995, 1996, 1997, 1998. I just went to every corner of New Brunswick, every possible habitat. I hiked out into remote bogs in the middle of the province and mountaintops and saw the province like I'd never seen it before. And my goal was to try to photograph every species of dragonfly in New Brunswick. There's this large maple, whatever, I can't even remember. I had a name for it a while ago. But so anyway, I did that pretty much non-stop. Here's a what's this called? Dimorphic Psittacroa. This one is called. Funny name. The genus is Psittacroa. I guess they couldn't think of a good common name, so they just used the genus. Dimorphic because it comes in a couple of different morphs. Dimorphic Psittacroa. Psittacroa chortalis. It's the scientific name. I think we did see it on one of our streams. After about doing that for 5 years, I sort of bottomed out with photographs of 123 of the 134 species that were found in New Brunswick. And I did a lot of collecting the first few years. I did a lot of collecting of dragonflies for the New Brunswick Museum. Caddisfly. But then I just woke up one day and decided I didn't want to. Oh, we had our first sphinx moth there briefly. I don't know if you saw it. Looked like it was a twin spotted sphinx. It landed for a second. Anyway, I decided I didn't want to kill any more dragonflies. So from then on, I just photographed them. I'm still very interested in dragonflies. They don't seem to find much time to go looking at them. Oh, sorry, somebody in my eye. Here's a moth we haven't seen tonight, and all I can tell you is the genus is Acrobasis. It's a micro moth. I wonder where our sphinx moth went. Oh, here's a habrosine. Is it a glorious again? No. This is the one we saw before last week was the glorious habrosine. This is the lettered habrosine, very closely related, but there is a major difference in the pattern of the white line that sort of goes through the middle of the wing, forms that circle. So this one is lettered habrosine. I think habrosine is the genus. I think the species name is Scripta. Look at the beautiful wavy lines there in the middle of the wing. The white lines that go through the middle of the wings are actually a very pale pink. Lettered habrosine. Nice. Oh, here's a one we saw before. Have to get out my sheet of paper here. Last time we saw this, I came up with an elaborate name for it. I think I was calling it the green dotted glyph. But I looked it up. It's actually just called the black dotted glyph. Even though it's got a nice green patch in the middle of the back. Black dotted glyph. This is, I think, a worn rosy maple moth. No, it's not. It's a tussock moth. This is a banded tussock moth. Beautiful pattern on the wings. First time we've seen that one, we actually saw a spotted tussock moth on one of our streams. Temporarily had flown away. This one we saw before. I couldn't remember the name, but I looked it up. And it's called the divided Olathrudes. That small one we were just looking at. Ooh, here's a nice big caddisfly. This is a large one. Looks like it's 20, at least an inch long, 25 millimeters or longer. Yeah, Ginger, it's Olathrudes actually starts with an O, but otherwise you've got it there, thanks. Here it is here, the divided Olathrudes. Yeah, you're probably right, Dan. Spell check didn't pick that up. Oh my God. Bet you didn't see that. Sorry. Porcupine. Which is like 3 feet from me. I was going to mention that I see porcupines quite often when I'm out here mothing. There was a big apple tree right here, and he spends a lot of time around this apple tree. And later in the summer, he comes here to eat apples a lot. So we'll probably have another chance to see him. I'm sorry, I don't think I got him on the camera at all. But I'm glad I didn't step on him at least. I don't know if his spines would go through these rubber boots or not. I don't want to find out, you know. So, back to the sheet here. I know we've gone beyond our time limit here. Well, not that there's a time limit, but it's after 12. This is our banded tussock moth. Once again, a better view. Notice those nice blue lines on the thorax. Banded tussock moth, that's it. There's a nice little micro moth on the side of the light there too. That's in the genus Cydia. I can't tell you any more than that. Cydia is C-Y-D-I-A. C-Y-D-I-A, Cydia. Okay, Ginger, thank you so very much. Really appreciate you typing out all these names, trying to figure out what I'm saying. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your night. So I'll just take one last peek and then we'll wrap things up here. That seems to be it. No biggies tonight. No Luna, no Cecropia, no Polyphemus. One sphinx moth very briefly. Here's a Hydriomena. That's the genus Hydriomena. It's a type of carpet moth. It's in the genus Hydriomena. It's difficult to identify the species. It's our bee moth. It's still there. Common Gluphisia, that's still there. This here is called, it's a micromoth called the dotted leaf tear. Dotted leaf tear, leaf, L-E-A-F-T-I-E-R, leaf tear. Gerald, are you leaving? Oh, I'm going to have to shut down now. No one to sing for us. Have a good night, Gerald. Thanks for joining us. All right, I think we will wrap it up. Been streaming for 70 minutes, 45 seconds. I was hoping I could show you the moon because it's right up here, right up above the apple tree, but the clouds have covered it. The moon and Venus were both visible a while ago, although they're not close anymore. Well, thank you very much. I'm really surprised that so many people have turned out tonight. And sorry, it's been a little disappointing moth-wise, but it'll just get better from here. So we'll see you on the next Moth Watch. I'm not quite sure when that will be. Tomorrow night's forecast right now it calls for rain. But as soon as the weather allows, I'll be doing another Moth Watch. And also be streaming from the bird feeders tomorrow. So drop by if you can. Good night, Brianna. Good night, Chloe. Good night, Sharon. Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Chloe and JB. Glad you enjoyed it. Good night, Alyssa. Thank you for all your help, too. Hey, Dan. Good night to you. Good night to the girls. Good night, Mary. Good night, Kim. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Glad you enjoyed it. Yes, I'll let you know as soon as I hear anything about Joe. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. Sorry if I missed somebody there. Bye-bye. Oh, if you haven't hit the like button, I'd really appreciate it if you would before you leave. Thanks very much.